The question is how the Java Servlets and ASP.NET Core middleware handle HTTP requests in web applications. When a user interacts with a web application, such as clicking a button or submitting a form, their browser sends an HTTP request to the server. Both Java Servlets and ASP.NET Core middleware are technologies that handle these requests, but they do so in fundamentally different ways. Let me start with Java Servlets. A servlet is a Java class that runs on a web server and handles HTTP requests when a request arrives at the server. The server looks at the URL and maps it to a specific servlet. For example, if a user visits login/login, the server will direct that request to the login servlet. Each servlet has specific methods to handle different types of requests. The most common are doGet and doPost. doGet method handles GET requests, which are used when users want to view a page. The doPost method handles post requests, which are used when users submit data like filling out a form. Inside these methods, the servlet has access to two important objects. First, the request objects, which contains all information about what the user is asking for, such as form data, cookies, and session information. Second, the response objects, which is used to send data back to the user, such as HTML, page, or JSON data. A typical servlet workflow looks like this. The servlet receives the request extracts and validates the data, perform the necessary business logic like checking a database, and then generates a response to send back to the user. The key characteristic of servlets is that each servlet is responsible for handling everything related to its specific URL. This means one servlet manages authentication, logging, validation, and business logic all in one place. While this makes servlets simple to understand, it also means that common tasks like checking if a user is logged in or logging request must be repeated in every servlet. This can lead to code duplication in larger applications. Now let me explain ASP.NET Core middleware. Middleware takes a completely different approach. Instead of having one component handle everything, middleware creates a pipeline. Think of it's an assembly line where the request passes through multiple stations, and each station does one specific job. When a request enters and as an ASP.NET Core application, it flows through a series of middleware components in a specific order. Each middleware can examine the request, do some processing, and then either pass the request to the next middleware or stop the pipeline and send the response immediately. For example, a typical pipeline might include first authentication middleware, which checks if the user is logged in. If the user is not authenticated, this middleware can stop the request here and redirect them to the login page. If they are authenticated, the request continues to the next middleware. Second, logging middleware, which records information about the request, such as the time it arrived and what URL was requested. Third, routing middleware, which examines the URL and determines which part of the application should handle these requests. Finally, the request reached the endpoint, such as controller or page handler, where the actual business logic is executed. After the business logic runs and generates a response, that response travels back through the same pipeline in reverse order. Each middleware can also modify the response on the way back if needed. The key advantage of this approach is separation of concerns. Each middleware has one specific responsibility, and that same middleware can be applied to all requests automatically. For example, if you add an authentication middleware to the pipeline, every single request will be checked for authentication. You do not to write the same authentication code in multiple places. Now let me compare the two approaches. Java servlets follow a more traditional approach where one servlet handles all aspects of a request for a specific endpoint. This makes them straightforward and easy to learn. However, common tasks like authentication and logging must be implemented in each servlet separately, which can lead to repetitive code. ASP.NET Core middleware follows a modern modular approach where each middleware handles one specific concern and requests flow through a pipeline of these components. This makes the code more organized and reusable, especially in large applications. However, it requires understanding how the pipeline works and in what order middleware components are executed. Both approaches are widely used and effective. Java servlets are mature and proven, especially in traditional enterprise applications. They remain popular in organizations with existing Java infrastructure. ASP.NET Core middleware represents a more modern architecture and is well suited for cloud applications, microservices, and projects that need flexibility and scalability. In terms of reliability and performance, both technologies are capable of handling high traffic web applications when properly configured. The main difference is in how they organize code and handle cross-coding concerns like security and logging. To summarize, Java servlets handle HTTP requests by mapping each URL to a dedicated servlet class that manages all aspects of that request. ASP.NET Core middleware handles requests by passing them through a pipeline of specialized components where each component focuses on one specific task. Servlets are simpler and more direct. Middleware is more modular and reusable. Both are effective, and the choice depends on the project requirements and the development team's expertise. Thank you.